Breaking news, it finally hit the fan. Alright, it's go time. Disaster is about to strike, and you have to decide whether you and your family are going to hunker down or get out of town. People talk a lot about bug out bags for emergency preparedness, but today I'm going to tell you why bugging in is a better option than bugging out in most situations. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm approaching emergency preparedness questions from the perspective of medium to large size families. And families with children, especially young children, have a lot to consider when deciding how to handle the choice between fortifying their homes and heading for the hills. Should you travel? In the event of something like a widespread and prolonged power outage, you might have a few days where travel is still reasonably safe, but after that, things become much less predictable. With stores closed and panic setting in, people who are running out of food and feeling desperate might be willing to do things they wouldn't normally do in order to survive. And that might include blocking roadways and resorting to violence to try to take by force whatever supplies they can. Traveling under these conditions is a risky proposition that you want to avoid exposing your family to if at all possible. Or, if a disaster strikes suddenly and without warning, travel by vehicle might not even be a possibility. Traffic jams and damaged bridges or roadways might prevent you from leaving your area or making it to your destination. And you might not find this out until it's too late to turn around and go back home. But let's suppose you hit the road early enough and had mapped out a route that is free of danger. You still have to contend with basic challenges of traveling with young family members. My family recently took a day trip that included almost 7 hours of driving. Bathroom breaks, kids being bored, and normal sibling disagreements are just part of the adventure. But imagine adding the stress of a true crisis on top of that. And if you would have to abandon the vehicle for any number of reasons, how far can the youngest members of your family realistically make it on foot? There are times when this might be your only option, but this should typically be a last resort, not your first plan of action. Supplies. Take a few minutes to think through what your family would need to survive on the road or on foot for 3 days or more. Food, water, shelter, medical and hygiene supplies, clothing and sleeping gear, flashlights, knives and other self-defense tools, communication devices, and so much more. Imagine carrying or even just packing in a vehicle enough supplies to take care of your entire family for more than a couple of days. It's a daunting task. In my water video, I talked about needing 1 to 1.5 gallons of water per person per day. For my family of 8, that's about 10 gallons of water per day. In a vehicle, that would be a lot of space and a lot of weight. Those 10 gallons of water weigh over 83 pounds, which means that if we were walking, there is no way we could possibly carry enough water to last even one day. We would be forced to take water collection and purification supplies and hope that we would find usable water along the way. Now think about how much food you would need. Again, you're not fending for yourself and surviving off of rationed MREs. You're trying to take care of an entire family. If your bug out destination is more than a day or two away, that's a lot of food and a lot of weight to carry. Again, if circumstances have forced your hand and bugging out is your only option, then you do the best you can to survive. But unless you have a family of experienced overlanders, this is clearly a risky proposition. The weight and size of supplies will require compromises to be made, and those compromises could end up jeopardizing your survival. On the other hand, if you bug in, you have access to the stockpile of preps you've been storing, including larger and more robust systems for water collection and food preparation. Exposure. What about shelter and security? If you bug out, your shelter while traveling is at best your vehicle, but might end up being whatever you can carry and wear, and the security you can provide for your family is limited. If you bug in, you have your home to protect you from the elements, including extra clothes, blankets, and maybe even a heating system. On top of that, you are defending a building that you are familiar with, and have access to whatever stash of self-defense tools that you've been gathering. Unless you are forced to flee, bugging in is again the clear winner. When to bug out. Now that I've made a case for bugging in, I do want to mention some circumstances where bugging out is the way to go. If you live in a city or any generally unsafe area and have advance notice of a likely disaster, or if you live in the path of a natural disaster that is predicted to be life-threatening or might make travel impossible for an extended period of time, these might be good reasons to consider bugging out. In these scenarios, the risks of staying where you are might outweigh the risks of leaving for a safer location. If you live in an area where you might find yourself in one of these situations, I would recommend identifying ahead of time a few different exit strategies and lining up multiple people at multiple locations that are able to take in you and your family if the need would arise. So while bugging out might be the answer in some cases, I think the risk-reward analysis leans heavily towards bugging in for most cases, especially for families that live in generally safe areas and aren't facing the threat of imminent death from something like a wildfire. Focus your efforts on fortifying your home and let bugging out be a last resort contingency plan. No bag? So does this mean that you shouldn't bother with a bug out bag? Not exactly. I still think a bag with essential supplies for multi-day survival is worthwhile, but I would recommend building out a get-home bag so that you have what you need to make it home to your family in case things go sideways while you are away. Check out my next video if you want to see what I keep in my get-home bag. So where do you stand? Are your preps focused on bugging in, or do you have a bulletproof bug out plan? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit from it as well. It really does help out me and the channel. Don't forget to follow the Barricade Guard on Facebook, X, and Instagram. The links are in the show notes below. And until next time, fortify your soul, body, and family.